They thought the story was over. Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, and Salome thought the story of Jesus ended on Good Friday. They were there, you see. All the men disciples had run away, but the women stayed with Jesus as he hung on the cross. They watched as the man they knew to be the Messiah, the Son of God, died. They followed Joseph of Arimathea as he claimed Jesus' body from the Romans and buried it in a tomb outside Jerusalem's city walls. Jesus' teaching and healing, the kingdom of God he brought near, the love of God and the presence of God the women found in him, it was gone. It was all finished. It had to be. Jesus was dead, and dead is dead. There's no coming back from it. The loss is devastating to Salome and the two Marys. They're deep in that fog of early grief where nothing seems real. They've cried so much, their eyes are swollen and they can't drink enough water to stay hydrated. They're scared, terrified really, that the Romans will come after Jesus' disciples next. And they're ashamed that the man they put so much trust in has turned out to be a failure. The two Marys and Salome need somewhere to put their grief. The only thing they can do for Jesus now is anoint his body. They creep out just at dawn, before anyone else is awake to see them. And they go to the tomb to offer this last act of love to their friend. But the story isn't over. Salome and the two Marys arrive at the tomb to find it open. It was sealed on Friday. They saw the stone rolled into place. They get only more alarmed when they step into the tomb and find Jesus gone and a young man they don't know sitting there. Has someone stolen Jesus' body? The young man hastens to reassure them, don't be afraid. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth. He's not here. He has been raised from the dead. He is going ahead of you to Galilee. You'll see him there. The women don't know what to say to this. It is incredible. It can't be believed. They're afraid to believe it. Jesus lives again, and he'll meet them in Galilee? Galilee is home. It's safety. It's Jesus' place. It's their place. It's where it all began and where it will continue. Maybe Jesus isn't a failure. Maybe his triumph over death is the greatest victory ever written. It isn't over for the women at the tomb. There are more chapters of the story yet to be written. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome aren't the only ones. Peter thought the story was over. Once he was all in for Jesus. He and his brother Andrew were the first disciples Jesus called. They left their fishing boats and net to follow Jesus. Peter was there for all the important moments, feeding the 5,000, the parables of yeast and mustard seed, the transfiguration. He was the first one to say it out loud. Jesus, you are the Messiah. Peter was Jesus' closest friend as well as his disciple. After Jesus' Last Supper with the disciples, when they all went out to the Mount of Olives, Peter promised, all the others may desert you, but I will not. But mere hours later, Peter claimed he didn't even know Jesus. Not once, 3 times. He regretted it the moment he realized what he'd done. Then Jesus died, before Peter could see him again and apologize. Peter is scared like the rest of the disciples, but the awful part of Jesus' death for him is that he can't make it up to Jesus. The friendship is broken, like a plate smashed on the floor. And there's no way, there's no time to repair it. Peter's remorse is as powerful as his grief. And all Peter can do is live with it for the rest of his life. But the story isn't over. The young man in the tomb has a message for Peter. It's for all the disciples, but Peter is called out by name. Tell the disciples and Peter to go to Galilee. They will see him there. Galilee is home, it's safety. For Peter, it is also the possibility of reconciliation. In Galilee, there is time to see Jesus again, to ask forgiveness, to rebuild trust, to repair what Peter broke. You can't glue a smashed plate back together again, but you can, with love and honesty and self-awareness and hard work, you can restore a broken friendship. Peter has that chance now. His future doesn't have to be defined by that catastrophic moment of cowardice. He can be the disciple who learned from his mistake and made amends and became a better person, a better friend. He can be the disciple Jesus forgave. It isn't over for Peter. The story has more chapters yet to be written. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, Salome, and Peter aren't the only ones. The Jesus movement thought the story was over. Their leader was dead. He didn't leave a successor. None of the 12 disciples were anything close to the leader Jesus was. They can't guide the movement now. And anyway, how can you proclaim that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, when he's dead? The community Jesus gathered around him of fishermen and sex workers and tax collectors and Syrophoenicians was diverse and messy and sometimes tense and challenging and glorious. It was the closest thing any of them had ever known to the kingdom of God. It's gone now. The Romans have struck the shepherd and the sheep have scattered. The two Marys and Salome have heard the good news of Jesus' resurrection, but they are too terrified and amazed to talk about it. There's nothing Jesus' followers can do but grieve his loss, nurse their disappointment, and say goodbye. But the story isn't over. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome do tell the story. They bear witness to what they've seen and heard. The stone rolled away, the young man dressed in white, the startling words, "He is not here. He has been raised." They tell the disciples and Peter to go home to Galilee, where Jesus has gone ahead of them to meet them. The good news spreads. The Jesus movement regroups with its identity and purpose even stronger. Jesus has risen, and their mission is to proclaim his resurrection. The Jesus movement spreads and grows beyond Galilee to Judea and Antioch and Corinth and Philippi and Rome itself, the entire known world. More and more people become followers of Jesus, not only Jews, but Gentiles as well, members of every tribe and language and people and nation. It isn't over for the Jesus movement. The story has more chapters yet to be written. That is the Christian life. Every time we think the story is over, God shows us that it isn't over. The story has more chapters yet to be written. For every Good Friday, every moment when it seems the forces of death have won, there is an Easter Sunday when death is swallowed up in victory. For every death, there is a rising to new life. We're starting to see that for ourselves. We have been in the tomb for 13 long months now. Months of isolation and loneliness and sacrifice and fear through the second surge and the third and now the fourth. At times, it seemed that the powers of death and despair would win. But the forces of death cannot withstand God's desire to heal and save and renew and restore us. New life is on the way for us. It will not be exactly like the life we used to have. Dying left wounds on Jesus' body that were still there when he rose again. And this year of so much death has left marks on us too. What we know, what we can trust with absolute confidence, is that Jesus has gone before us. In our dying and rising again, we follow him, and his path to new life is sure. The story isn't over, dear ones. There are more chapters yet to be written. Jesus has gone ahead of us through death into new life to our own Galilee. He will meet us there.